Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, I'll be giving you some tips on how to start your speed solving journey with the Rubiks clock. I'll be showing you which clock you should buy, how to pick a speed solving method that works for you, and how to train that method in order to get faster. Starting with the clock that is the best for you to buy. There's really only one option, and it's the Qi clock. It is $33, I believe. And it's really the only good clock okay, mine looks a little different because I modded it, but it's really the only clock that can turn fast, because other clocks that are cheaper, like the Shangzhou clock and the Lingao clock, are old and don't have really good hardware. Like you could see the pins might just drop while you're solving, and that usually doesn't happen with the Qi clock. Now, I'd recommend, if you do get the Qi clock, I'd recommend to take out the screws, as you can see on the box. Take out the screws and replace them with tape, as it makes the clock faster, and also lubricating the inside, which I'll link a video to in the description. Now, when it comes to picking your speed solving method, I actually already have a video on that. So I'll put it in the description and in the card right there. Now, the video is kind of long, but I highly recommend you watching through it, as it has some tips about clock that I won't show in this video. But if you're on like a time crunch, I'd recommend going to the last chapter where I detail each method and compare them. And then once you find a method that you like, go back to that section on that method and watch it through. Now, if you pick one of the more advanced methods right off the bat, I'd recommend you watch the first 10 minutes, I guess, of that video, where I detail some advanced techniques that you might need to use for each method. But yeah, go watch that video and then come back here once you've picked a method that you're ready to use. Now that you have a speed solving method picked out, let's get into actually making that method as fast as possible. This part will be broken up into 3 smaller sections, which are how to turn faster, how to memorize faster, and how to deal with skips. While not all methods use memorization, you can still benefit off of this section, because if you have skips, you'll be able to predict other parts of the solve to make your transitions easier and make you pause less. So without further ado, let's just get into turning faster. So learning to turn fast can be either really easy or really hard. It just depends on what type of person you are and how fast you can already turn. So having a fast clock benefits with this. So again, if you have a Qi clock, use it. And if you haven't lubricated it or replaced the tape, do it. Replacing the tape actually helps a lot, believe it or not. So starting off with the most important thing, finger tricks. So we'll start with how you hold the clock, then how you do moves on it. So starting off, you're going to have thumbs pretty much anywhere in this circle. So I could have my thumbs here, I could have my thumbs here, I could have them here, I could have them here. I prefer to have them like right about here, but it really just depends on the person. I just think you just have to be able to hit these pins, hit the pins on each side nice and quickly. And on the back, what I will do is have my middle fingers somewhere on these circles and my ring fingers somewhere on these circles. So this is because when a pin is down, you're not going to reach over to the back to press it again, because that's extremely slow. You're going to use your middle and ring fingers to press those pins down. So you have to be able to get these pins nice and quickly. And the reason we can't use your pointer fingers is because they're going to be twisting these dials. So you have to have them right here. You can rest your pointer fingers here a little bit, but it's important to have them here. And it's really uncomfortable to hit these with your pinky fingers. So it's really just these 2 fingers. Now, I like to have my pinky hanging off, especially because of the last finger trick we'll talk about. But if you want to, you can have them right here. As long as you don't do what the last finger trick is, which is D moves with your pinky, then you want to have them free. But now to actually turning. I'm doing this just so we can rotate these independently. But what you would do is turn these dials with your pointer fingers. It's the only one that makes sense. Like turning with your thumbs is slow because imagine you have like, you're here, thumb, pin, it's slow. So you're turning with your pointer fingers so you could still hit pins and everything like that. I forgot what I did, but it doesn't matter. And yeah, it pretty much just makes sense to do these U moves, because U for top, D for bottom, to do these moves with your pointer or your index finger or whatever. Now for the more annoying ones, which are D moves, and there are two ways to do it, which are actually good, and one way that I really hate seeing people do, which is, the one way that I hate is when people rotate and just do U moves. It's really slow. Like imagine if you're here, you're in flow, and then you have to regrip all the way over here to do D moves. So like it takes a little bit. So what I would rather do is do either move your index finger up here and rotate with your thumb. And your index finger is moved here just to get some leverage. Like if you do it from here, that's okay, only if it's comfortable. I like to do it from like holding like right onto this corner. So I would just hold here and just do that. And same on the other side. Or the way that I prefer is to use those pinkies and just, yeah, do that. Now, it can be pretty uncomfortable for some people in the beginning, but using your pinkies, especially if you use an advanced method like without a flip, this is better so you don't have to regrip and then come up here and then regrip. And yeah, it's a soft regrip, which is better than this one where you're repositioning your whole hand, but a regrip is a regrip. So yeah, those are pretty much all the main finger tricks that you use for clock. And yeah, on to the next thing. Now for a rather advanced tip, which is training your brain to know the exact amount of force to put onto a specific move. So like if you're right here, instead of just slowly moving it back, especially when memorizing, if you're like counting the amount, so it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of doing that, just knowing how much force to put on it. So if you try that as a beginner, you might do something like that or like that, which can be really annoying. So it takes a whole lot of practice to just be able to do that. So what you would do is essentially on both sides and actually across all the dials. So like if you do D moves with your thumb, then you would do it here. Just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, see, I overshot there. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then just negatives in the other direction, so just counterclockwise. And then you would do the same thing with 2 o'clocks. And then 3s. And then 4s. And so on. And also be sure to do them negative. This just trains your brain. See, I skipped another one. To know how much force you have to put on. So like if you're here, just seeing, oh, I have to match these two. This one has to get to here. I'll just be able to do that. And then just over here. See, I overshot massively over here. So I'm not exactly perfect at this either. But it is an advanced technique to just make you think, oh, instead of just matching these two, instead of just going slow, making sure I get it, just using that amount of force. And this is pretty much required if you're trying to get like under maybe like 4 or 5 seconds, just so you don't even have to think about, oh, you know, I can do that. But it can be a little tough for beginners starting out, but it's definitely worth it to train. So this tip mostly only applies to methods where memorizing is mandatory. Now, even if you use like the original flip method, you can still memorize certain moves you have to do. Maybe on the back, you memorize the first move, but it mostly applies to methods where you have to do 2 moves at the same time. I forgot what the position was. It was that, yeah. 2 moves at the same time. You have to, instead of thinking of, oh, I'm going to count the ticks as that's slow, I'm just going to show you. So the first move I have is to do nothing on this because I have a skip. These 2 are skipped. And I have to do a 4 o'clock, so that on the other side. But the thing is, instead of just counting the ticks, instead of just going 1, 2, 3, 4, you can visualize as, oh, pick a clock. So I'm picking this clock. This clock has to go here. And the reason I picked it is because it just goes straight to 12. So I would just go that. Just match this to 12. Now, it can be a little harder if you're not matching to 12. So, like, the next thing is I have to do 2 on this dial. So I would just, like, I guess this clock again. And I have nothing on this side, by the way. But just, you know, match this to here. So instead of just saying, oh, 1, 2, you have to just see what tick it is and just match it. So then here, it's easy because it's just intuitive. And then the next one, I have 3 on this dial and 2 on this dial. So it would just be match this clock to this notch and then match this clock to this one. So it would just be that. And then lucky for me, the rest of the solve is intuitive moves. And it should be solved, but I'm not here to show off my method. I'm just like, oh, if you need to do 3 on a dial, instead of thinking of it as 1, 2, 3, you just think of, oh, I have to bring it here. Now, this can take a lot of practice, especially if you're like here and you need to do like -5, then it would just be matched to here. But it's definitely an extremely important skill to have in memorizing methods. Next up, we have tips for memorizing faster. And to start this segment off, I'm going to start off with memorizing for the flip method, which doesn't require any memorization. I'm just going to get them out the way because it's easy. So basically what you would do is we're going to memorize the first 2 moves on both sides. So on the flip method pin order, which is the most optimal pin order, it's going to be DL, UR, UL, and L. And then just everything but DR. And it's actually going to be on both sides. So it would just be something like that for creating a cross. So how you would memorize this is if you saw we had matched the center clock to the U clock and the L clock. And if you don't know what that means, go watch the video on the clock methods that I said earlier. So what we would do is memorize the C clock to the U clock, which is 3, because it has to move 3 times to match. And then what we would do is take the C clock to the L clock as well, since the L clock moves. So you don't have to memorize U to L or anything like that. So this would be -4, which if you don't see how I get the negative, again, watch the methods video. So you would just memorize 3 and then -4. And then if you'd like, you could actually flip and then just do this side intuitively. And then just be like, oh, once I flip, I have 3, then -4. So it's just an easier transition. But again, it's not entirely mandatory to do. Okay, so I DNF'd. But yeah. Now for the people using methods that actually require you to memorize specific clocks. So what you have to be able to do in these methods in order to memorize in the 15 seconds for inspection is to memorize at a glance, which is just to take a look at 2 clocks and already know the distance between them. So just as a technique, or I guess as practice, what you could do is memorize. So I'm using 7 simul no flip as an example, by the way. But for the first number, we memorize D to C, which again, if you don't know what D and C mean in this case, go watch the methods video. So D to C, and then you would memorize half of your second number because this second number requires a flip. So it'd be D to C, and then R to DR, which is 2. You would flip, quickly look at these 2 clocks, and then flip back and note the distance. So you would have to add the -2 to this clock, and then just see, oh, it has to be over here. That's 5. You have to do that in that time. So then you would do that, and then you would flip back and quickly note the 2 clocks right here. So it would be -5. And then you do that, and then you would flip back and then memorize these 2. So it's just going through your memorization, but doing it quicker. So basically, boom, 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 boom. So yeah, once you do that, I didn't actually memorize, it's just an example. Once you do that, you should be able to just hurry up, start the timer. And you shouldn't go over an inspection if you do it like this. While it is very, very, very hard to learn how to memorize faster, especially if you're doing math, it is pretty much a necessity to use the method in comp, because if you go over 15 seconds of inspection, it's a +2. Go over 17, it's a DNF, and you don't even get to solve. So memorizing fast is very, very, very important. Now we're going to talk about skips, which are really good if you can use them in the right way. You can skip moves, which is why they're called skips. So I'm going to be talking about skips for the 3, I guess, biggest methods, which are flip, 7-time will flip, and 7-time will no flip. So starting with flip, there are 5 skips that you can get, even though one technically fits into the other one. So we're going to start with the skips with the edge clocks, or basically the crosses. So the first type of skip you can get is a skip where 2 or more, you could have something like this, 2 or more skips or 2 or more edge clocks match already. And even if you get the clock like this, you want to hold the skips right here. So they're the center clock and the top clock relative to you. Because usually the first move is to match these 2 clocks with a D move. And D moves are the worst parts of the flip method. So if you can skip the D move, that's really good. So you can just start with the U move. And it's better because you don't, if you have your hands on the timer, instead of having to pick up and then do the D move, you can just do that. So that's the first type of skip. The second type of skip is if 2 diagonal clocks, I guess, match. So these 2 here. And what you would do is put them on the D and the L relative to you. So you still have to do the D move, but instead of just making, so let's just say you didn't have a skip. Instead of just making this block, instead of just doing that, if you do have a skip, you're making half the cross. So now you have half the cross, and then you can just do another move, and then your cross is solved. So now, this is a small thing that I forgot to mention, but if you have a whole block, then just hold it here, and then just finish the cross. So if you have it, even if you have a block here, just hold it here, put this pin up, and yeah. Now for the last edge skip, which is kind of weird, it's a line. And what it is essentially just 2 edge skips, one going this way and one going this way. So if you can, you might want to do this, swap all pins, and then that. So then you have cross done in 2 to 3 moves. But if you can't swap the pins fast enough, just start it normally, just pretend this clock doesn't exist, and just go from one edge skip, and then you can just do that. So yeah, those are the edge skips, and those are done on the first side. That's really important. You can do edge skips on the second side, but most of the time, it's better to do an edge skip on the first side. Now for the corner skip, which are very important to do on the second side, because if you have them on the first side, they don't really matter. So there are 2 types of corner skips, and yeah, they're just, both of them are just corner matches with edge. There is no corner matches with center. It's just corner to edge. And the first one here is these 2 specifically. So you could see it goes counterclockwise, and then it hits that corner. And it's not just the clocks. It could look like this. It's counterclockwise and it hits that corner. So it would be here or here or here or here. So it's very, very important for this type of corner skip, which is the easy skip, to hold it in the top and the right. So R and UR. So that when you do your cross on the first side. Oh, wait. Okay, so I did it wrong. But yeah, do the cross on the first side. You don't touch this corner. This corner stays. And you still have the corner skip. Because if you do use this corner, which I'm scrambling, and then I will match the corner. So you have your corner skip. If you do it right here, then as you can see, this corner moves. And then once you flip, it won't be in the same spot. So it's very important to not use this DR corner specifically on this specific corner skip, and then you would just do your cross like normal, and then you would just skip the first corner. Now, for the weirder corner skip, which is not those two, it is these two, which are, it looks like you can put it top and right, but it's actually bottom and right, so it would just be that. And for this one, you're going to put the corner skip right here, but if you look, when you're doing the cross, this is a move, and you can't move this corner. So what you're going to have to do is keep the corner in the DL spot. So you're going to have to keep this corner here, but if you flip, it'll end up right here. So what you have to do is do a Y2 flip. So you would do that, and now the corner skip is here. So then you could keep doing your cross, and notice I don't touch this corner, and then do a Y2 flip. Do your cross normally, which you see it moves, but it doesn't really matter. Do it normally, and then you can see, now you have this skip, and then you can just go into the next one. So yeah, those are all of the flip corner skips, and actually all the flip skips in general. Unless you have a whole cross, then you can just start on one side, but that's extremely rare. So on to the skips for the next method. Now I'm going to be talking about skips for the 7 simul and 7 simul flip methods. And the reason I can talk about them both is because mostly they both apply to each other. So I'm going to be using 7 simul no flip and B-Paul 7 simul flip as examples, because I'm not going to talk about like 5 different variants of 2 different methods in the same video. But what goes for all methods is, don't worry about corner skips. You really don't need corner skips that much unless you're insanely advanced. But for edge skips, especially ones with centers and stuff like that, like these, try to use them where they're the only things being memorized. Like, you don't have to add anything. So like, if I'm using 7 simul no flip, and my sixth number, my last number is these two, you add it to this one, then you add it to this one, then you take these two, then you add it to this one, then you add it to that one, and whatever. Or well, I guess it's subtract these two. But you don't want to use an edge skip there because it won't end up in a skip. You only want to use it if, say, it's just these 2 clocks. So it's matched this to this, which is 0, which means you skip that move. You could skip the move. And especially with 7 simul no flip, it's really good to have a skip like this because that first move is a D move. So you really want to skip that. But if you're using 7 simul flip, still try to get it into a place that it's the only clock affected. So like for B-Paul 7 simul flip, one of the numbers is, it's either U to C or C to U. I can't remember. I don't use the method, but it's really just these 2 are the only ones being affected. So it's 0, which means when you're actually solving, you'll skip one of the moves. Now, if it's a skip like this, same thing applies. So like for 7 simul no flip, which I forgot to say, I'm using the Tommy's variant, but one of the numbers is just these 2, which means it's 0 again, which means you skipped it. And for B-Paul 7 simul flip, just these 2 are a number, which means if you hold the edge skip here, that means it's a skip. You have 0. So that's still like extremely advanced. So only come to this when you feel like you're ready. But that's pretty much how you document skips. So those are my tips on how to start your speed solving journey with the Rubik's Clock. Let me know if I missed anything or if there are any tips that you would add to this video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.